3 months ago, I saw this tweet on my timeline from LS that said, was able to play all day, blah, blah, blah. The format is simple with a lot of strong decks. This red deck is craftable after tutorial. Again, this is probably the easiest time to start Magic the Gathering for anyone. And I saw this, and uh, I was kind of aware of Magic the Gathering vaguely. I had a couple of friends in secondary school that played it at lunchtimes. I think I tried it then maybe like once or twice, but not enough to really understand what was going on. And I tried it once more with another group of friends, so I was aware of it, and I knew that it was a very widely respected and enjoyed game. So I was like, I've wanted to give it a chance, and if this is the easiest time to start, then what am I waiting for? Like I might as well give it a try. And so here was the deck list, which at that point I really had no idea what was going on. But I was like, great, this gives me a clear little goal. It even gives me a target of hitting Mythic. I had seen a couple other tweets from LS around this time about how easy it was to hit Mythic. So I was like, great, I have a deck that I can get basically straight away. I have a goal. He says here that it's craftable after tutorial, which maybe if you get really lucky with what you hit. But I think it took me 4 or 5 days of accumulating some of the coins from the easy missions to buy some packs to get enough wildcards. It was close. And even then I remember I didn't have the soulstone sanctuaries, because I think somewhere below he says, if you can't craft them all, don't craft those. But suffice to say, I gave it a go, and this was the start of the rabbit hole for me. And sure enough, not long later, I did hit Mythic. And part of me found it rewarding. I'm sure a lot of people, if you played Magic, look at this and you're like, yeah, disgusted. Mono red to Mythic, it doesn't even count. Because it really was so easy. As someone that hadn't played the game, didn't really know what they're doing, I didn't even know the order to play cards at that point, or that like to hold things for my turn. I would just spit everything out, and it was enough to get me there, which is definitely slightly criminal and definitely a heavy contrast to every other game I've played. Normally there's a very large learning curve to begin with, and usually it takes quite a long time just to get over the initial learning the game, and then you're kind of in the middle of the ranks for a long time. A lot of people never really go above it without putting some extra effort in, and then even then it's usually a grind to get to the top. So this was a completely different experience. It really did feel like I was cheating somehow. And I don't know if this is just the normal experience. I'm guessing the rank distribution is quite different. I think probably Mythic is a higher percentage than most games' highest ranks, but it was enough for me. It definitely satisfied my goal, so I was very happy. But just before I sort of hit the end of this climb, because this could have probably been the end, I hit the end of the climb. You don't have enough resources to really craft another deck. You're kind of not wanting to play much more with this deck. The fun of it is really winning. It's not really playing the deck. But as with most things I get into, I end up sort of falling into the YouTube niche of it. And for Magic the Gathering, I'm sure anyone that's in the space or has even briefly searched Magic the Gathering in YouTube has come across this channel. And it does pretty well for views. I think it's probably a pretty common landing place for new players. And I think the video I first landed on was one of these three. But I had also seen some tweets about the new set, which was coming out very soon. And that really spiked my curiosity. In fact, I think it might have been that led me to look it up on YouTube. And a lot of things I saw were about pre-releases and what a fun event they are, even for new players, and it spiked my interest. and I watched this video, which is basically explaining the process of creating a sealed deck at pre-release, and I thought that sounds like a lot of fun. I think I was definitely enamored by the base game, but the limitation of not being able to craft multiple decks on Arena felt like quite a big limitation to how much I can enjoy it. So the idea that I could, have a completely different deck every time I play, and I get to make it, sounded really fun. And in one of these videos, they mentioned this shuffle up and play, and I started watching it, and they mentioned that one of the players did draft content. And like slowly these little things, I heard about the new set, and then I heard about pre-release, and I heard about draft, and it sort of led down the rabbit hole to watching Paul Chion here's videos about the Tarkir Dragonstorm new set, and I was very excited to try and give it a go myself. So I did a bunch of research on the new cards coming out. I remember playing a ton of these mock drafts or draft simulations on, I think, the Draft Sim website, and then later on 17 Lands. And I'd watch these videos daily, and later I found DeFore as well, who I really enjoyed. Both of these guys make amazing draft content. Just, the sort of thing that's great to watch while you're having your meal. And I was at this point also thinking that I would love to just give making videos a try, knowing that they probably won't be good, but I always wanted to give it a try, and I knew I just needed to, get over myself, get over my perfectionist spirit, and just make something. It doesn't need to be good. It doesn't need to fit any standard. I just need to be willing to put stuff out there and make it good later. So this all sort of culminated into the beginning of my channel. And the first video, we could give it a little bit of a watch here. So I am a new player to Magic. You see, I'm so quiet. Pretty new. So I thought it might be fun to record my I sound so attempt at draft. Shy and nervous. This is gonna be technically my second, which I was, draft, but the first one was. And this was a good experience. I mean, I'm not much better now. I'm in the same chair, doing the same thing. But I sort of did this. I did my first draft. And it was very successful, surprisingly successful. See if I can see the deck here. And it was tons of fun. It was just a good time, and I decided, I'll keep going. At this point, I had saved up a bunch of coins, which you get is the free currency, and because it was the beginning of the new set, the new set was in Quick Draft, which is a bit of a game changer. This is important to remember for later, but Quick Draft is basically half the price of a Premier Draft. So there's Quick Draft, Premier Draft. Quick Draft half the price, Premier Draft double the price, but you get more rewards from a Premier Draft. So it's proportional. The rewards are proportional to the amount you pay. But the gameplay is mostly the same, except in a Quick Draft you draft against AIs, which means you get, you make a pick, it instantly goes on to the next pick, and you don't have to wait for anything. And you can also take as long as you want, which is great for a new player. So I love that. And I kept that going for quite some time. So this was that video, and a couple days in, so I was uploading every day here, I decided, well, one, I was trying to think of a good way of packaging these videos, because obviously I'm bad. And I think a lot of the reason that people click on these videos from Porcheon is either because they're new, these are pre-release event stuff, or because there's this little Mythic logo in the thumbnail, because he is really good, and it's fun to watch someone that's good because you're not just enjoying the watching, but you're also learning. And I don't have that. So I was kind of thinking that maybe the appeal here would be, it's kind of sometimes cathartic to watch someone be bad at something. So this was the idea behind my first draft. And also, you know, if it's like a climb, either they can be rooting for you, they could be rooting against you, but at least there's like a stakes involved. And it gave me a bit of structure to my videos as well, which I liked. So this was the beginning of the series, and I uploaded every day with the goal of playing every day until I hit Mythic. But alas, you can see got to day 19 here. And then I haven't I didn't upload for a while after day 18. Now I did keep recording videos, and actually right here is the spreadsheet of all of my games since I started the challenge. So you see it goes 30 days. And the main storyline here, I think, is I mean, it's a story of falling short ultimately, because as you may notice, none of these say Mythic, and yet here I am sort of closing the chapter on Magic the Gathering. So what happened? Well, the first thing is Magic is really hard. I think one of the most interesting things is that there's really two skills being tested, but very separately. You're testing how well you can construct a deck, and then also how you can play the deck, which kind of makes it hard to analyze what goes wrong, because it can be very hard to discern whether you could have won, whether you just, you know, you played it badly, or what could have been better about your deck. And often they go hand in hand. And it's obviously often a mix of both, which can make it really hard compared to, I think, some other games where, you know, you're like, well, that was my mistake. Like, I can point to that moment where I made that decision and it was bad. But I think that's quite a lot harder in draft. I think that's not a bad thing. I think that adds a lot of depth and interest, but it certainly makes it slower to learn, or at least slower to improve at, I think. And so, yeah, I was trying to take notes, and what you'll notice is around day 5, all the way to day 21, there is not a single time I drafted red. In fact, every time I drafted black and green, and that was because at this point I fell in love with Golgari. So yeah, you can see day 5 was the discovery, and from then on, except for day 7, I basically exclusively drafted green, black, and then maybe one other color or two other colors. And you know, I think this was probably a big throw. I mean, ultimately, it did not see much success. I started on day 5. I did get a trophy here. Oh, I got a trophy here, sorry. And I did get a trophy here. So I got 2 trophies. But you'll also notice this terrible loss streak. And actually, day 13, so day 13 out of 30 was my peak. If we look at the graph here, that is the highest I got, which is crazy to be the highest before you're even halfway through. And from then it was downhill, because once you hit plat, you need to be winning more than you're losing, and I just was not, especially after this terrible loss streak. So Golgari was definitely a choice that I made for the fun, and I did have a great time. I think ultimately the fun of Magic is the synergies, and you know, that feeling of like, this is what I sort of imagine my deck doing, and it's doing that. And getting those incredibly sort of, yeah, I think that, well, at least for me, that's the fun, the payoffs. They're like, wow, when I do this, this can happen, and this can happen. Like, I can make this card way more broken than it would be in any other deck because of all of these synergies. And Golgari just had like something about putting all those counters on a creature and making them completely crazy was just so fun to me. And so yeah, I just had fun playing it, even to not great success. And ultimately, I don't think I really regret that, but it did come at a cost, which was my win rate. Um, and towards the beginning of the new season, I you drop a lot in the new season. I was trying other things. You'll see I started playing some Jeskai, some Sultai again, some Mardu even, some multicolored dragons. Um, but I could not really do well enough to justify keeping on going. And that brings me ultimately to my biggest complaint with Magic the Gathering Arena, at least. And that is just how punishing it feels for new players to want to play the game. The way it works, like I explained before, is there's quick draft and premier draft. These are the two main ways. There are others, but these are the main ways to sort of play ranked. Increase your limited rank. Limited just meaning anything where you're going in without a deck and you're building a deck. At least that's my understanding. And so to enter it, you need to use some of the in-game currency. And you can either pay with gems or with gold. Now, gold you accumulate for free. It's the free-to-play sort of currency. You if you play a good amount in a day, you're earning about 1,250 or 1,500 depending on your daily mission. And you need 10,000 for a premier draft or 5,000 for a quick draft. So, that's almost 3.5 days of playing to earn a quick draft and 7 days to enter a premier draft, which is a lot. That is a long time to build up for one sort of play session. I think for most people that would not be, if that alone was the cost, it would not be worth it. I think most people enjoy grinding out a game, the repeated attempts, the learning, the just, when you lose, you just want to play more. You want to go again. You want to put your learnings into action. And that's kind of, if you're competitive like me, I think that's a lot of the fun, is that feeling like I can go again. And so I was doing my best. I wanted to put out a video every day. So the other way to do it was to use gems. I've put the cost here and average, but basically to play a premium draft, if you're doing the best value deals, is about €8. Or if you're doing a quick draft, €4. That is a steep price for playing one event to get sort of these virtual cards that I don't think people playing like me, who play a lot of sort of video games, that I'm less of a physical card enjoyer and more of a competitive gamer. This is very punishing, and it feels very punishing. Now, this is not the full story, because when you enter a premium draft or a quick draft, you get some back from winning. So if you win a couple games, you get some back. In fact, I have it here, and you can see that actually if you win 6 or 7 games, you gain money in a quick draft, and if you win 5, 6 or 7 games in a premier draft, you get back some gems. So if you are good enough, you can make profit. You can, you make this initial free-to-play entry and you just keep earning more and more. So it is a skill issue ultimately, and I'm not denying that. If you are a good player, this isn't an issue. The entry cost isn't an issue, but you have to be really good. In fact, I was trying to figure out how good you need to be, just with this sort of simulation. I'm sure there's a much better way of doing the maths for this, but to be honest, I just knew that this would be way quicker. This took like 10 minutes to put together, so I just can type in the win rate. So let's say I have a 50% win rate with it across all my events. I have 50% win rate. What is that distribution going to look like? This shows the number of times. So I will get 0 wins about 15% of the time. And that is punishing, because for 15 wins, you lose 700 gems in a quick draft, and you lose 1,450 which is basically everything if you're in a Premier draft. So that's basically €8 down the drain, if you get 0 wins, and even with a 50% win rate, that's going to happen 15% of the time. And if you average it out, the key number to look at is this. This is Premier Draft, which is the main way to play because Quick Draft rotates in and out. So if you want to play a specific set like I did, you just can't for a large portion of the ranked season. So you end up playing Premier Draft. You are losing with a 50% win rate, about 650 per draft. Which, if we go back to this, is just a bit less than sort of €4, which is a pretty expensive price to be paying every time you play the game. So you might ask yourself naturally, so what sort of win rate do you need to start turning a profit? And from what I can tell, it's about 70%. So you can see this, once you have 70% win rate, you're actually hitting 7 wins almost half the time, which is just enough to start earning money in Premier Draft. In Quick Draft, you're still losing money. But this would be enough to comfortably keep going free to play for a long time. But obviously, this is good if you're already good at the game. If you're a new player, you're expecting your win rate to be about 45%, maybe 50% because you are placed against people of similar skill to you. But when you're brand new, you're gonna be losing a lot. And I think this is a problem. If you want players to enjoy playing the game, they need to be able to play it a sufficient amount. And I think the issue is that they want their in-game cards to hold some value. You can't just enter, for example, a Premier Draft for free every time because you're gaining something from playing it. Not just the normal little rewards for your time. This is like you're gaining a huge amount of cards for your collection. But I think the solution to that is just phantom drafting. They do this for the midweek Magic events, and that's just where you draft cards, but you don't get to keep them. If there was a queue for that, I'm so sure people would play this game so much. It is such a fun game to play. It's something that incentivizes you to play a lot of because it's that fun, and you want to. I think it really scratches that itch of players like me who just want to improve at something. They enjoy that process, and it has incredible payoffs. I think of a game like TFT, which is another game I've really enjoyed. Definitely different, but similar in sort of single player strategy with interaction with other people, and that sort of like the thing that makes TFT great is those payoff moments where your comp comes together and it's completely ludicrous what it can do, the same way Magic does. But what's fun about TFT is you just get to go again and again and again. You lose one, you go again. You can just keep bashing your head into a wall until stuff works. And I think that really works to keep players. Right now, it's kind of like it's good for the people that either got a lot of disposable income or are good enough to sustain it without having to put too much money in, or content creators. And so realistically, I just cannot carry on playing draft. I will 100% come back and play a bunch of drafts. I will definitely play some in my own time for the Final Fantasy that's out now, but I don't think I can justify doing it as my main content, and I certainly can't keep doing it daily. So, I mean, I'm talking a lot. I've just sort of rambled for 25 minutes. My ultimate conclusion is Magic the Gathering was super fun. I really, really, really like playing draft, and I would come back to it in a heartbeat if I get rich enough, or they make some sort of free to play version. But for now, I will just enjoy it as a side thing that I play very occasionally, which is probably their intention. They want you to play constructed, sort of standard, or some of the other modes as your main mode, and you dip into draft to have some fun with the set. So that's all for me, and that's all for me for Magic for the foreseeable future. For now, looking forward, I am going to try my hand at League of Legends content. If you remember right at the start, I found this from LS, which I know LS from League of Legends, and it has been a game I've played for a long time, um, and really enjoyed. And I think just going in that direction with something that's free to play and I can grind and improve at is gonna really scratch that itch for me in sort of competitive improving at something that I really like. Um, but it also is yeah, just something that I think I can make some good content around, hopefully. It's definitely a more saturated space with lots of other people that I will be competing against for eyeballs. But I think, again, I know what I make isn't going to be watched by many people. There's probably one or two people watching this at tops. Um, so I know I'm kind of just rambling to myself. But I think that's fine. I think I'm content with that. I just want to get better at talking to camera. I want to get better at making stuff. I want to get better at the games I play. And I want to give it a shot. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, hopefully more content coming from me in the coming days. I am going to start live streaming. I'm saying this now, so I can't go back on it. Hopefully on both Twitch and YouTube, maybe just YouTube. I'll put the links in the description for that. But yeah, I'm excited for the future. So hopefully you'll watch me for some League of Legends. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, see ya.